This Week in Radio Tech, episode 159, is brought to you by Axia Audio and the easy-to-use LiveWire IP audio network. Learn about IP audio from the resources online at axiaaudio.com/tech.
And now, our feature presentation.
Twert.
News of the week, including video for radio, talk show social integration, and the sequester is keeping some government folks away from NAB.
All right, calm down. He says that to everyone.
This calls for immediate discussion.
What's up, Doc?
All your days are belong to us.
From his palatial office of important business,
or in a choice hotel in a distant land.
This is Kirk Harnack.
Chris Tobin and Tom Ray join me in welcoming Jake Bechtold. He's an up-and-coming radio engineer with a big IT background.
You're dialed in to This Week in Radio Tech.
Hey, welcome in. This is This Week in Radio Tech, your favorite show if you're a broadcast engineer. If you are interested in audio and radio technology, RF concerns, streaming audio, all kinds of stuff like that, we like to talk about it. Radio still hits, 90-some% of the people in America, hits people all over the world. Yeah, literally hits them. That's right. Knocks them down. We have digital radio. We have analog radio still. Lots of ways to get radio, mono, stereo. There's even surround sound radio available here and there. Not very popular, but it's there. And so this is the show where we talk about it. Our program, This Week in Radio Tech, is brought to you by whoever Chris Tobin decides. Let's bring him in. The best-dressed engineer in radio, my friend, Chris Tobin from New York City. Hello, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Yes, tonight's sponsor will be Axia Audio.
Oh,
we'll talk more about that later on.
All right.
I'm with the folks at CCS Music Cam USA, and for disclosure for everyone, we produce, manufacture IP codecs both for audio and video, and many other things.
Chris, sometime we really ought to do a show about your video production and codec products because, well, that's going to be a subject we're going to talk about for at least a few minutes this evening is video for radio. You've given us a number of examples of how you had opportunity to do that in New York City when you worked at the CBS facility there. And I know stations are doing this. There's a new product on the market. I forget if is it from Tascam or somebody. It's a couple $1,000s. It's a 4-camera switcher. That's out there. You guys have your own product, and so we got to make a note to talk about that.
Okay.
After all, TV is just radio with pictures.
This is true.
Yeah. Hey, also with us, regular co-host from the Hudson Valley of New York, my friend and yours, the ever effervescent Tom Ray. Hey, Tom.
Who was extremely disappointed tonight because he wasn't elected Pope yesterday. But anyway, yeah, I'm up here in the Hudson Valley. I'm doing my thing. I've done video for radio, and by the way, video killed the radio star. So,
hey,
especially us.
Let us give us the quick reminder. Everybody thinks of you, Tom, as Mr. WOR, the guy who takes chances. You worked for many years with this old line AM radio station that brought a lot of popularity to talk radio and entertainment radio in the New York area. You were one of the first guys in the country to do HD on the AM band and do it very well, I might add. You also were the first facility to put in a large IP audio installation, 9 studios of IP audio. It had never been done with that many studios before, but you're not really working at WOR anymore. Give us the quickie on what you're doing right now.
I've got my own company. It's Tom Ray Broadcast Consulting. My major client right now is the New York State Broadcasters Association, where I do. I'm handling EAS for the state of New York, and I am also doing station inspections for the Alternative Inspection Program. So that's a lot of fun, and I'm already starting to gather stories from that. And I do several other things. I got a small station I'm going to start looking after next week, and I still actually do go into WOR a couple of days a week to help them get through the transition period here. So there's a lot going on, and I got to tell you, I got more work than I know what to do with. So,
yeah, I'll bet. Well, I was in business for myself for years doing contract engineering, and literally me and 2 to 3 other guys took care of literally 100 radio stations in the Mid-South area, West Tennessee, Southeast Missouri, East Arkansas, Northern Mississippi, and Alabama. Oh my goodness, we worked. It was sometimes it felt like 24 hours a day. Speaking of another guy who's figuring out that there's a lot of work involved in this business, let's bring in our guest. Our guest is a young man from North Dakota. It's Jake Bechtold. Am I pronouncing that right, Jake?
That is correct, Kirk.
Good. Glad to have you with us. Tell us, well, first of all, if I say Fargo, are you from Fargo or are you somewhere else in that area?
I am in Fargo right now, originally from in Fargo.
Good. But tell us what you do. I noticed you had popped up a couple times as somebody who follows this program, and you had a couple of interesting comments to add. I forget if it was on Twitter or Facebook, but I saw your name pop a couple times. In fact, Jake, a month ago, I made myself a note on my calendar. I wrote in there, contact Jake Bechtold about being a guest. Because whatever you said was intriguing, or I thought, this guy's pretty sharp. Let's find out about him. So tell us about what you do there in Fargo.
Well, I do a primarily IT work. I do a little bit of web development as well, but I mainly make sure all the computer systems in the station. We have a 5-station cluster up in our Fargo office, and we have a small station down in Wahpeton, North Dakota. And then I'm really just making sure all for the most part, the computer end of it is working the way it should. And that goes as far as salespeople's computers and making sure they work, even as far as say the automation systems in the studios, or like the Vox Pro or any computer-related program that the DJs use on a regular basis, making sure those work, and mainly taking a lot of that pressure off the main engineer so he can focus on keeping the transmitters on the air and that sort of thing.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to get into, in primarily the second half of the show, we're going to talk to you about your coming up in the IT world and your learning about engineering in the radio world. A lot of our viewers and listeners to this show, are old hat. They're like me, like Tom, like Chris Tobin, been around this business for a while, and not a whole lot surprises us. Always something to learn, but we kind of have the basics down and have had them down for a long time. You, on the other hand, you're coming up in this, and you've got a couple people that are either mentoring you, or you're following, or you're just bouncing off them to learn things on your own. And I want to know about the learning process that you're going through to get into broadcast engineering, and about how you feel about the integration of IT in radio stations. That's something that the guy Chris Tarr, who's not with us this evening, he's been involved a lot with that at this new station that he's at. So I want to hear from your perspective too. Right now, we're going to hit on some topical things that are in the news. I'm going to hit up just a few things that popped up in radio world in the last couple of weeks. First of all, hey, a few years ago when Axia came out with this notion of IP audio, it was in some corners it was rather poo-pooed. IP audio, that stuff doesn't work. But now it seems like a number of companies are doing IP audio. There's Lavo. There's the folks at Ravenna, which are developing an IP audio standard. There's also this X192 standard that a lot of companies, including Axia, are a part of. Then there's the folks at Wheatstone. They've had this WheatNet around for a while. I've noticed that they're bringing out a mic processor that has their IP technology built into it. Or maybe it's there's an FMHD processor that has WheatNet IP built into it. That's pretty significant. In fact, a little inside baseball here. When for about 4 years or so, Axia was the only company doing audio over IP for studio use. And then, lo and behold, Wheatstone came along and started doing that. Well, on the one hand, for the folks at Axia, Wheatstone is a competitor. And hey, if you've ever been in the market for buying consoles and let each company know that you're looking at their consoles, you'll see they're very competitive. But when Wheatstone decided to also get into the audio over IP arena, that actually was a good thing for audio over IP, since Wheatstone is a company with a long history. They're well respected. They make good consoles. So when they got into audio over IP, as well as Axia, and then we also saw Logitech doing a little bit of that, and now we see some European manufacturers, specifically Lavo, getting into that. Well, it really has some mojo. It gives it a lot of credibility. So if you followed this show very long, you probably know that Telos and Omni and Axia make a lot of stuff that all connects over IP. Wheatstone's now making a new FMHD processor they'll debut at NAB that has WheatNet IP built into that. So that's pretty cool. Chris, Tom, or Jake, you guys got any comments about the world of audio over IP? Is it a good thing that more and more products come with this capability?
Oh, I think it's a good thing, very good thing. I mean, when we put the Axia system into WOR, it was as you said, Kirk, it was different. It was revolutionary, and it kind of revolutionized the way we did things because we no longer had the telephone company style punch blocks on the back wall. I mean, block after block after block with mega pairs of multi-pair cable going into each studio. It was just a Cat 6 going to the other room, and it made life real easy, and still makes life real easy to change anything. I mean, you didn't have to. You didn't have to go hunt down a pair. You didn't have to go figure out if the pair was open. You didn't have to reconnect it in the console in the other room. You just put it up on the system, gave it a name, walked into the studio, punched it up on the console, and went click, and there it was. I mean, it literally took 5 minutes to add something into the system. So I think it's a great thing, and it's very flexible. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. And if you had to reconfigure the system, if you were to change format and you needed certain things, it's a wonderful thing. It really, really is.
Obviously working for the folks at Telos, Omnia, Axia, I go to a lot of trade shows, and I have to wire up a lot of studios in short order. And that's just been a fantastic thing, this IP audio. And I would imagine that, if you're hooking up a Wheatnet IP audio system or one of the newer ones from Lavo, the story's about the same. You've got things that plug into your switch, your computer switch, and you get audio, and in most cases you also get control and configuration, such like that. Yeah, it makes things so much simpler. I've got a box across the office from me right now. It's called a Telos iPort. It has 8 stereo bidirectional codecs in it. Now, if that were a traditional piece of broadcast gear, it would have 32 XLR connectors on the back of it. 32 XLR connectors. Or if it was all AES audio, it would at least have 16 XLR connectors on the back of it. This box, the iPort, has 2 Ethernet connectors on it. You live wire in and WAN out. The iPort, I should explain, is a bridge between IP audio, like live wire, and the compressed audio world. So you can do AAC and MP3 and all that kind of stuff. It's for getting a bunch of audio streams from one place to another, like halfway around the world or across the state, connecting 2 cities together, whatever like that. And so this box has literally two plugs on the back of it, and you can configure it all with a web browser. So that's just where things are going. Jake, let me bring you in. Have you got? I mean, you're in the IT world. To you, and you're young. To you, it's just normal all your life. You've just configured stuff with a web browser, right?
Not entirely normal. I actually have gotten a chance to play with one Axia console. We did this at the student station I used to work for when I was still going to college, and we actually use it in a production room of all places. Not necessarily the best way, but where the whole audio over IP and just the way the Axia boards work as far as configuring, where it proved itself was last summer we actually took down our main on-air studio over there so we could redo it. So we had to broadcast something. So we wired up to our production room to the air feed to get it back on the air. To get this room ready for our MediaTouch automation, everything we need to turn this production room into an on-air machine, or on-air studio, I should say. It just, using the Axia consoles made it so easy to configure. There's no, messing with punch blocks or whatnot, or trying to get, figure out, okay, what's, how can we wire this on the board, and do we have to move stuff? None of that. You just hook it up and it works. It was an easy way to have a secondary studio. And it was used if we were to use it in a primary studio, I think it'd be even more convenient to use.
I'll point this out, and we will get more into this in the second half of the show, Jake, when we're talking about your career specifically. But when you move to an IP audio world, all your problems don't go away. A lot of them do. A lot of the physical world problems, like punching down wires and connecting things and not having them connect, or solder connections, a lot of that stuff goes away. But you have a whole different set of problems come in. Like if you know little about the IP world, or the IT, internet technology world, then you may have some problems with IP addresses or duplicate IP addresses, not configuring a switch to handle the high-speed IP audio correctly. You do trade one set of problems for another. The good news is, at least the way I think about it, the set of problems that you end up getting in the world of IP audio are, I think anybody can learn these things. It's not so difficult. And if you have some trouble, support it becomes much easier. If you can let somebody get into your system, via TeamViewer or VNC or whatever support system that they may have for remote desktop, they can see most everything they need to see from your desktop. So support, just becomes, instead of you describing on the phone what the problem is, and that's the only thing you can do, now you've got somebody, who can almost stand over your shoulder and fix the thing for you and while you're watching. Isn't that a benefit?
I think it's a huge benefit, especially for someone like me who knows a lot about how networks work and whatnot. Let me back up a second here. Getting Punchbox were foreign to me when I started doing this, but anything IP related, I got right away. So for someone who's a newcomer like me, that was really easy for me to pick up.
Yep. So I was just looking over a couple other things here. In last week's show, we had a real free-for-all about where the direction of radio is going. And since last week's show, we have seen a news story come in from a couple of major auto manufacturers who are saying, no, we're not dropping AM and FM from the dashboard. But we did have a lively conversation, and even more followed on Facebook and Twitter, about the social integration of broadcast media. And is that important or not? There was a news story just today or yesterday about NPR. In fact, I think I put it on Facebook today. I re-put it there. NPR has an initiative to bring more young listeners to NPR by hitting them where they live, and that is through social media, because that's where they hang out. That's where a lot of them hang out. I was just noticing that there's a broadcast manufacturer, and several are doing this. This one just popped up in the news. The folks at Phonebox, that's Broadcast Bionics out of the UK. They make phone screening and management software. It's really good stuff. They're actually a partner with us at Telos, and we ship a light version of their screening software for free with our phone systems. They're going to be showing a new thing at NAB, an advanced system called Phonebox 4 with Oasis. It's going to have interactivity right there on the call screening screen, interactivity with Twitter, Facebook, Google+, also Google+ phone calls, and it'll control your codecs all in one piece of telephone talk show software. So there can be a lot of posting quickly of audio clips and what people are saying on the talk show to social media. Of course, I guess the whole idea here is to hook people in with social media, little snippets of what somebody important might be saying, what somebody not important might be saying, and get them to listen to the radio or to the web stream. Chris Tobin, you were involved a lot with broadcast operations, and getting phone screening softwares to work right for the operators. What do you have to say about the integration here of or the tight integration of talk show screening and social media?
Well, actually, when I was at CBS, we were doing a lot of that with the call screening and the studios, the FM studio folks, the music formats did a lot of that, and also the talk shows, the sports talk shows were coming online. I see that definitely becoming just commonplace. As you pointed out with Bionics and Phonebox, that'll be the start. The easier you can integrate and cross-platform, I'll call it, the ability to do the social, the typical phone chat that we're all accustomed to, and then the radio show itself, and then add a little video to that, it'll just become homogenous and all of a sudden become second nature. And then the hardest part will be just understanding how not to play to the camera as a radio host when you're doing a show. And then it'll just take off from there. But I see it coming along. It'll be interesting to see how radio stations adapt to it. I think the small and medium market stations are going to find the niche faster than some of the larger counterparts, and then suddenly it'll explode.
Jake, your stations in North Dakota there, are they doing anything with social media and live interaction with social media and what's on the air?
We are. A lot of what we're saying on the air is being put on the Facebook and Twitter feed and all that fun stuff. And I think what Chris just said, the smaller market stations are going to find their niche faster. Fargo was market number, I think, 209 last book. We were number 209, so we're a fairly small market. And I think we picked up on social media pretty quickly. So I think there's definitely some truth to that. If you're in a larger market where you have many different types. I shouldn't say many different types of people, but where there's more people you have to try and become social with online. I think like Chris says, it'd be a lot harder to get it going. But in the small markets where there aren't all that many people to begin with, it's actually not all that. I shouldn't say not difficult, but it's going to go a lot smoother than if you were in a large market station.
Interesting. I know that we're going to see at NAB even more tools to integrate the radio studio with social media. So you'll just more tools so that from one console you can manage conversations on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus. Perhaps Pinterest and others. And of course, you don't have to have that integration. You can and there are non-broadcast oriented integration tools as well. There's plenty of those out there. Dashboards for managing that kind of thing. A few minutes ago, we were talking about video for broadcast. I noticed that the folks at Rushworks are coming out with a small package of looks like little remote-controlled pan-tilt zoom cameras and what looks like a tablet, a Windows tablet, to control these and to switch cameras. It's called VDesk Radio TV System for providing a little behind-the-scenes video. I guess stations would stream this kind of thing. I've got this couple of stations in American Samoa, and in Pongo Pongo, American Samoa, our main station there, 93 KHJ, we actually have a cable channel that we rent from the cable system. A lot of times we just run infomercials and birthdays and things like that. But in the mornings, we do video of our morning show, our Samoan Sunrise morning show. We actually pay an intern to come in and switch, between about 5 video cameras that are in the studio. I think during songs, they switch back to, scrolling commercials. And then whenever the jocks are getting ready to talk, they'll switch back onto live cameras. And folks watch this, while they're drying their hair or shaving, getting the kids ready for school. I found myself watching it and thought it was pretty interesting to see the jocks interacting live. You guys tell me what I mean, Chris, Tobin, I know you guys have been doing this at CBS when you were there just for quite a while. Tom, how about you? You got any stations doing the video thing?
I mean, consulting-wise, no. I mean, we had talked about doing this at WOR for a while. The problem was the morning show. I mean, we had 4 people on the morning show, and the studios themselves weren't really set up with reasonable camera angles, except for one for the main host. And then we had looked at some other things, and we just decided, having to switch cameras and the thing Chris had said before about possibly having people start playing to the camera, we just never did it. And I always thought it would be kind of a neat idea to give you a peek behind the scenes and see what actually goes on in the morning show and how they prep and how they do things. And personally, I always thought if you had a morning zoo, it would be a great addition to a morning zoo because it would add yet one more dimension to what's going on and to the fun.
Chris,
it does.
Yeah. Did stations start out with just like one, almost like a security cam in the control room, and that was it? And now they're doing switching. Well, how did you guys start out at CBS?
CBS, we were doing webcams, basically positioned throughout the studio, and there was this piece of software, free software, I think it was Manycam, and that would allow us to switch between the video shots. But a lot of times they found
did you do it automatically, or did you have to switch it manually?
No, you switch it manually, and the reason they did is they wanted to do it manually was so they could keep the conversation, sort of like the old days of audio following the video, so that you didn't lose sight or lose, I should say, sight and sound of what was going on in the conversation. Because when we first did it, they were sort of doing these random shots and moving things around when they turned mics on and off, and it just started to get confusing. So they decided, you know what? Let's just stick with one person controlling the camera, depending on how the conversations flows, then the camera shots will follow accordingly. Because at one point you have we had the presenter, the host, and then 2 guests talking. So you had the 2 guests talking back and forth, and then the presenter just listening. So the one camera shot would only have one of the guests looking. So you had to get a shot that had like a 2-shot, and then you had to figure out, oh wait, if you do a 2-shot, then we have to have a 1-shot. So the voices didn't follow right because you did a 1-shot, one person talking, but it was the wrong video. And then they did a 2-shot, then it made sense, but then you had to get the right size. And then when it came time for all 3 to talk, well, which shot do? You do a quick shot of the host, and you go back to the full room shot. So it was interesting. But we went with, we tried the afternoon show guy we did it with. We hooked up a webcam in the ceiling. It was pretty cool. And then we did a one shot of the jock, and then cross shots for the guests. But we found that the one that worked the best was the shot from behind that showed everybody at once talking, and then the shot of the jock when it was just the single host talking. It seemed to be visually easy on the eyes and audibly made sense.
Made sense.
To the radio audience, it doesn't matter. But it's interesting when you start playing with video and visual cues and then have audible cues tied into them. You really quickly understand why you shouldn't do quick shots back and forth. And I've noticed that on a couple of radio stations that do video in the morning show, they get a little crazy with the video switching, and the video wipes and all the effects and everything else, and so it takes away from what's actually going on. That's why I was saying earlier, try not to play to the camera, because I think that's where we make a mistake in radio.
Yeah.
Remember
so
one thing.
The cameras are a look into the studio, not you're not producing a show.
Exactly. Now, I had the pleasure of, I stopped by a radio station in Portland, Oregon, and they had it set up in their studio where they had a camera shots of the angles for the hosts and the morning show folks and everybody. Then they had a green screen in the back of the studio with a camera for that. So when they wanted to play to the web audience and actually do video, then they'd get in front of that and do their stuff. So in between commercials or whatever they were doing, they'd do a little snippet, a quick update on the website. So you had a video shot, and it was geared towards somebody viewing the video, not somebody who was doing a point of view in the radio studio for the radio show.
Sometimes I feel so far behind the times. There's a lot of TV that I don't watch that people do. But here's one thing I've noticed. Here in Nashville, we have the Fox affiliate, Fox 17, every weekday they have a 4-hour morning show, and it's news and a little bit of it gets lighter in content, in the 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 time period, real heavy news, starting at 5 a.m. news, traffic, weather, that kind of thing. But they do a near daily quick remote broadcast with the jocks on the morning show on the river here in Nashville. So typically they're talking about who was on American Idol or, The Voice or typically some Fox show, right? And so I guess I really hadn't paid attention to the radio, but these guys must be playing a song during this time. They got to coordinate this. So they're playing a song at 51 minutes past the hour. So they can all can huddle around the Skype camera, the webcam, and do a live shot with Fox 17. And the anchors on Fox 17 interact with them. Now, this seems really cool to me. Is this popular everywhere and I'm just missing out? Has this been done for a long time now?
Oh, at WOR, John Gambling's been doing something like that for a while. He actually does it in the hard news thing. At around 5 o'clock in the morning, we put an HD camera in the studio and lit the studio properly. And it's actually quite funny because whenever he gets on and whenever we've had to do anything with the people over at Fox, the first thing they do is look at the studio and go, "Is that an RE20?" And then, of course, he talks and, "Oh, my God, does he sound so good?" And it's like, oh, God. We do audio for a living, guys. You don't. But he's been doing hits, in the news thing because his show is news talk oriented. And they bring him in as kind of one of the local experts on the local politics and local things going on in New York City. The studio looks great on television because we do have the HD feed. It sounds good, and it's good for the station. You can't buy that kind of promotion on a television station. You just can't. So,
how about in Fargo, Jake? TV stations do this kind of thing? Did they get radio people on the TV?
Not a whole lot of that up here, and I'm not sure exactly why. I guess it hasn't taken off up here. We have thought about getting a green screen in our building for our stations to use, and maybe doing some web-oriented videos that way. But we really haven't, done the whole, put the radio people on the TV in the morning type integration, that sort of thing. We really haven't gotten that far up here.
Hey, something else that's been on my mind, the whole CAP EAS thing. In my radio stations, I've not been too involved with this. My business partner has been taking care of getting us compliant with CAP EAS. I noticed that there's another blurb in the news here about Gorman Redlick's method of handling CAP EAS. They have this CAP Deck 1, and it's a converter. It converts CAP into EAS messages, so you just feed the output of it into your normal EAS monitored decoder. Tom, what can you tell us about this? Have you run into any of these Gorman Redlick boxes?
Yeah, actually, I talked to someone 2 weeks ago about the Gorman Redlich box, and actually TFT makes one as well. You're right. What this guy does, it's a computer, and it looks at the CAP server, and it interprets the CAP message, and then spits it out so your EAS decoder can decode it, and you can get the message on the air if necessary. There's an audio component to a CAP message, so the box will download and grab the audio file that's sent, and of course, when it spits it out as audio as an EAS message, that audio then goes into your EAS box and ends up on your air. But the nice thing about a lot of the CAP stuff, well, not a lot of the CAP stuff, all the CAP stuff, you can actually go into it because all it is a computer, and look at the log and look at the messages that came in and take a look at what's actually there and listen to the audio. So it's 6 1 half a dozen the other. I don't know what the pricing is like on the Gorman box, but I do know that several of the other
it's like other Gorman products. It's like other Gorman products. It's rather affordable, shall we say.
Well, yeah, but even if it wasn't, what I'm getting at is if you compare that to the price of a brand new unit that's fully CAP capable,
right.
And not an add-on, it's almost a wash in the price very often.
Oh, really? Okay. Well,
let's say the prices are close. So,
if you just bought a non-CAP EAS box in the last 5 years or so, and it works fine, and now we have this CAP thing, and I can understand stations that don't want to go out and buy a whole new, combined CAP and EAS box, even though it may have a number of features. They want to, if they can get an add-on, they can spend another $1,200 or $2,000, whatever the Gorman box costs, I don't know, and add that to their existing investment. You're telling me that that's really okay? There's not a problem with that. It's
no, because it receives the CAP message, it relays it so it can end up on the air, and it will produce a log for proof in addition to whatever your normal EAS box spits out. So, that's perfectly legal, and there's nothing wrong with it at all. And if that's the way you want to go, that's actually a good way to go. It's not for every station. It's for a lot of stations, and there are quite a few that do that.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, a station I inspected the other day had the TFT version of this for their 2 TFT boxes. It's a little 1-rack unit computer. Slides into the rack, and they connect it into an audio input on the EAS decoder, and off you go.
One more quick story before we break and then and focus on young Jake's career. Turns out that the sequester may affect who's going to be attending NAB. It appears that the FEMA IPAWS personnel won't be going to Las Vegas due to the so-called sequestration. And one member of that office has posted a message to the SBE EAS listserv that at this time, FEMA won't have a presence at the show. Radio World, where I'm getting this information from RadioWorld.com, here's that means FEMA won't have a booth at the although supposedly they would have already paid for it, and no one can travel to the event, including those scheduled to be session panelists. The NAB still lists FEMA's Wade Whitmer as a panelist, though, on a panel taking place on Wednesday, April the 10th. I don't know. I don't know how much they're being asked to cut. The total sequesters, 2.3%. Okay, focus on just the part that the government actually has control of the budget over, not entitlements, but everything else. And you get to you need to make about a 5 to 6% cut in your agency budget. Really, they can't send people to NAB. And we should ask the question: Is it important and necessary that people from FEMA IPAWS be at NAB? Any opinion?
Well, seeing that. Seeing that they are making changes, they are talking about the possibility of another national EAS test, and the fact that they have yet to release full information on the results of the national EAS test that was a year ago, actually over a year ago. They really should send somebody there and just to have a face. I mean, because people are going to have questions, and if they're going to be on a panel, even better. this comes under the heading of do as we say, not as we do. We're going to hide behind the glass. You hide behind the curtain here and direct you from afar. They really need to get out and in with the broadcasters, so they know what's on our mind, in addition to so we know what's on their mind.
Do you feel it's important that they are at the NAB so they can interface with the broadcasters?
Well, the interface with broadcasters and just to have a presence. Several years ago, the FCC finally went to NAB, and they've been showing up every year. People loved it. They could walk up, they could talk to somebody, they could see the commission, they could reach out and shake a hand and touch the commission. These are people who have always been forever unreachable, untouchable. You pick up the phone, you can talk to somebody there, and all of a sudden there was the FCC, and they actually had some good information. I think it'd be a big plus, if for nothing else, for public relations for FEMA.
Speaking of the FCC, the end of this article points out, and this is a really interesting dichotomy. How do you think about this? The FCC has a $340 million annual budget. The sequester has forced them to cut 5% off of that, which is about $17 million. On the one hand, 5% doesn't sound like a lot. On the other hand, $17 million sounds like a lot. So I don't know how you do that. If my company asked me to cut my travel expenses by 5%, yeah, I guess so. I can probably stay at a 2-star instead of a 3-star hotel. I never travel first or business class anyway, but I can. Hey, make one less trip per year, and I'm down 5%, right? But if they asked me to cut $17 million out of a budget, oh man, where do you start cutting that at? I don't know. Chris, Tobin, you got any thoughts about cutting budgets that much?
Well, when it comes to cutting budgets, you really have to look at a bigger picture and understand exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish. In the case of the government sequestration, I think unfortunately it's more politics than it is common sense. Yes, 5% if it's $17 million, that's fine. It's a $340 million budget. Odds are you could probably find properly a way to do it, but most people in most operations, as soon as they hear cut a number, they just immediately look at the whatever's at the top of the list and go, oh my God, that's it. Here we go, 5% done. Cutting out, as Tom pointed out, FEMA, in this case, the presence at the NAB. Let's think of the bigger picture. NAB is what? It's a trade show. It's an industry trade show. It's one of the largest in the world. It is the place where the industry that's impacted by the government, whether it be FEMA, FCC, or Department of Homeland Security, this is the one venue that you have a chance to meet and greet, as Tom pointed out. So, to cut that particular item on a budget, obviously that was somebody not paying attention. That's just what it comes down to.
Or like we've heard from the Parks Department, is cut where the public makes it hurt. Here in Tennessee, where I live, a few years ago there was a budget problem in the state of Tennessee, and the first thing that the governor at the time said to cut was close the state parks. Really? You can't find 4 or 5% waste somewhere. You can't trim something, combine something, quit subscribing to some magazine. I don't know what, but really it's the things that make the public go, oh, we can't go to the park. It feels like, doesn't it? Like they closed the White House tours. We're getting far afield, but
it's still the
here's
same
affecting
thing.
the NAB. Yeah.
No, but there's a perfect example. Close the White House tours. Really? Let's think about that. Are you kidding me? That's the most stupidest thing you can come up with. That was obviously political. Okay, just end of story there. I mean, come on. It's like municipalities that decide to cut back on their public safety services because they have to cut a budget. But you have to have 16 different assistants for a commissioner of parks or commissioner of sanitation. Come on. So FEMA should really be at the NAB. It's more so to serve the public, to serve the people that they're working, dictating policy to, or in part dictating policy to. That's how it should be. But if they can't be there, then what they should do is reach out to an organization like, say, the SBE and say, can we come up with some kind of a webinar approach, maybe some kind of a video chat at the NAB, and have scheduled times when somebody from FEMA in Washington sits in front of a camera and talks to an audience. What's wrong with that? A telepresence approach.
Actually, they're talking about doing that. That may be an option for them.
Yeah.
And I did that several years ago when I did a presentation. It worked out great. I sat right here where I am, and I did it on Skype.
Good for you. Yeah, and hey, in our company, we do that all the time. I held a meeting yesterday with guys from Germany and Riga and Cleveland and here and then sometimes I made my budget presentation at our company last September from a hotel room in New York City. Yeah. Hey, guys, we're gonna continue the show. You're watching episode number 159 of This Week in Radio Tech. We do have a guest. He's not been on camera for a few minutes. It's Jake Bechtold. We're going to talk to him in just a minute. Also, we're giving away this radio. This is a Insignia. That's Best Buy's house brand. We're giving away this Insignia tabletop FM HD radio. I'm sorry, it doesn't include AM. I wish it did. It should have, but this one's tuned right now to my local public radio station, WPLN, and their HD3. And it's got this cool feature. It'll search just for HD channels. Here's a little bit of what's going on their HD3. Okay. I've scanned across now. There's I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 HD channels here in the Nashville area. So we're going to give this away. The way you used to do contests in the past, we're doing it again today, is you just retweet the announcement that I made on 2 Twitter accounts, kharnack at kharnack or at Twert Show. If you want to just hear Twert Show announcements, follow just at Twert Show on Twitter and retweet that at the beginning of the show. If you want to be a Johnny Come Lately, you can go find it now and retweet it now. That'd be fine. You'll still be eligible. And the idea here is to let a lot more folks know about This Week in Radio Tech and that the show is starting. So if you help us let other people know about the show and where we are and that we're on the GFQ network and they can watch it here and watch repeats and subscribe to it and all that, that's helpful to us, and we're going to give away the radio in just a little bit. Right now, I want to hear from Chris Tobin. Chris has some really interesting experience with an IP audio system for studios. He built, 4 or 5 studios using audio over IP from Axia. Chris, it's your commercial.
Yes, this is for Axia Audio, and I can say that I've installed an Axia Audio system in, it was 4 studios, a TOC, and a fully functional 24-hour, 7-day-a-week newsroom. So, Axia Audio over IP. First thing you think of is, oh my goodness, it's an IP, it's computers, what I'm going to do. It's not that difficult. First thing you have to do is get rid of all the old ideas of how you did stuff. 66 blocks, Christmas tree blocks, for those of you that remember those, and then there's the ADC blocks. Just put them out of your mind, not to disparage those products. Their time has come and gone. Okay? Let's put them aside.
Gone.
So now let's think. What?
Gone. Yes, their time is gone.
They're gone. And it's not because they're not bad. They can be used elsewhere. But for this particular purpose, you don't want to use them. So let's think of this. Audio over IP. It's actually, Axia Audio is a distributed audio workflow system. Let's think of it that way. Distributed audio. 2 keywords to listen and pay attention to. So now you think of traditional radio station. You have an air studio and multiple support studios. Production 1, production 2, maybe an edit room, voice box room, who knows. So now what you do is you have a master control room. Now, we're all familiar with master control rooms. That's where everything comes back. Those big cables in the ceiling, maybe on the floor, sometimes just along the floor itself. Now you don't have to go crazy. Now these little things will be pushed out away from that big room. So the big room now has the service for your automation systems, your playout machines, internet stuff, whatever you're doing. Then you have a rack full of little switches. Well, not little, but Cisco switches that will now take this audio that's distributed all across your plant into places where it has to be. So your air studio is part of the main thrust. That studio can have a console. Console is like a desktop, like a keyboard. All it is just plug in a cable, Ethernet cable, Cat 5, Cat 6, and now that talks to an engine. The engine could be in the studio in itself, or if you prefer, you could put the engine somewhere else and just run a cable to it and be done with it. That's okay. It's your choice. Now you have choices, whereas before, with those other things I told you to forget about, your choices were very limited. Basically, point A to point B, that's it. And whatever goes across, the number of pins you have, that's it. Here, you can put it wherever you like. So if your system, say we'll use the example of a FM news station, FM music station, 1 studio, production room for producing stuff, and maybe we'll have a performance studio. And you have a master control because you have to have it. So in the master control room, we put the Cisco switches, we run Cat 5 cable to all of those studios. And at the end of those Cat 5 cables will exist what? A node, or in this case of an engine. The engine has a node built in, has everything it needs for you to talk to the peripheral stuff. Speakers, microphones, headphones, all done, 1 cable to that room. Now the performance room, maybe there you want to do a little extra stuff. So you have a mixing console. Maybe you choose an Axia desk or the Element, or you choose some analog device and you want to plug it into the node's analog inputs or digital and put them onto the system. The system. The audio Axia system is a bunch of streams. And anywhere within the system or the network, you can grab the streams. So now you have a general manager says, I want to be able to hear what's going on in the performance studio, but not off the radio. No problem. Drop a Cat 5 into his office, pop in a little node, out comes a speaker, and you can program that node just to output one stream. The stream is maybe a pre-fade listen, if you want, of the performance studio. Or you make it a separate mix just for him. Yeah. How easy is that? As Tom pointed out earlier, you just type it in on a computer screen, off you go. Now, you have also the famous telephone closet where all your IOs come into the building for various things. Maybe you have audio devices that you can't bring closer to the master control. Run a Cat 5 cable to the telephone closet, you drop in a node, put all the IOs onto that, and those streams now appear anywhere in your plant. One cable to the telephone closet, you're done. You don't have to worry about figuring out, where is that connection we had? Which pairs? I don't know. You've already programmed into the node, they have an assignment, and off you go. Again, it's simplicity. Also remember, with the audio, you have iProbe, a software that lets you configure any device on your network for one single location. So you have administration PC. It could be in master control. It could be in your office, wherever you like. Now you can control everything and check out what's going on and make changes and look to see what the health of the network is all about. Again, it's simplicity. Now that you're on IP, you're at home. There's a blizzard. It's 12 feet of snow outside. You can't get to the radio station, but you do have connectivity. All your systems are up and running. You VPN in, you can manage the entire network from home. Yes,
I know.
I've done
it's crazy. Well, here I am sitting in Nashville, and you guys know I was gone to American Samoa last summer, putting in 3 Axia consoles there. And, when I got back home, I realized there's a couple things I hadn't done yet. They wanted this changed and that changed. Sat here at this very desk and using TeamViewer to jump onto a PC there. I just reconfigured the things they asked for, and bam. So
yeah, and I did the same thing at the radio station I worked at, where we installed the system. It was an all news format. And I was at a location, it was for election night coverage. Okay, so picture this, if you may. You have a full working newsroom, 30 people running around covering election night for the presidential election. And then we have an offsite location at our network facility. We were an ABC affiliate, so we had access to one of the studios, the ABC radio networks, the newsroom, ABC News. And there we produced the night's election coverage. So 3 of our anchors offsite, located there, doing everything, remoting back to our newsroom, which was the Axia system. And we did all this through IP. Then I got a call from a guy in the field that one of our reporters was at the Democratic headquarters at the Waldorf Astoria. He was coming in on a codec that was being fed into the Axia system. It was an analog codec, came into a node, the whole usual standard I/O, nothing fancy. However, for whatever reason, his audio coming into the codec was very, very hot. And the guys at the studio couldn't do anything about it. No matter what they did on the console, it didn't help. I was able to remote into the node where that input was for that particular codec and override the levels and bring it down to where it needed to be without even having to worry about calling somebody at the studio and say, walk through this, do that. I did it remotely from the remote location that I was on site with for our anchors. So the idea behind what I'm saying, what I'm actually trying to get at is the Axia audio system. Once you understand the simplicity of workflow in the IP world, your imagination is the limitation. So that's why I was saying get rid of the idea of all the other things, punch blocks, patch bays, all that stuff. You have to really think of distributed audio. You want to put everything in one room, so be it. But you know what? You're going to waste your time doing that. Distribute it. And the trick is how you do it and understand your workflow, your facility. And if you do it that way, you can't go wrong. And understand that it is a different approach to IP. So if you're working with your IT folks, don't let them panic when they see the packet stream. It looks like a broadcast storm, and all hell's broken loose on the land when they look at it with their analyzer. If they're looking at Ethoscope from Fluke and they go, you got a problem, man. You got your broadcast packets are everywhere. It's like, yes, that's exactly what we do. However, I'll give you the white paper from the website that tells you how to set up a Cisco 3560, and you'll see why. And they're like, oh.
It is pretty heavy user of the network. But you know what's amazing? When you start playing with this IP audio stuff, anybody's, doesn't have to be Axia's, but there's a lot of packets going on, and yet it still doesn't even stress the switches. The switches, Cisco and other the switches that we recommend, they're made to handle this. So there's a lot going on, and there's still a lot of room left over.
Yeah, it's very simple. And like I said, you could do many things, and as long as you just think of in terms of you have the broadcast revenue network, which is your Axia Livewire, Axia audio system, and then you have the administrative network. If you do it smartly, which I know many people have done, I've seen it, you can have a dual home device where it talks on one side, one network, and it talks across to your Axia network. So you can remote in VPN into your system, secure tunneling. Don't do anything where you're not secure tunneling out from the outside in. Okay, just don't do that. Just be smart about it. Create a tunnel. Make sure you have the proper bandwidth overhead, and do it right. and once you do that, you're in and out. You're up and running, and you can do a lot. And trust me, if you plan it ahead, you'll have plenty of wonderful weekends, relaxing, knowing everything is fine, because it will run. Matter of fact, one thing I did do is early on in the early days, we had to upgrade the memory in several of our engines, and I was able to take one off at a time, pop it in, replace the memory, do everything, and each studio continued to function because the way I did the topography of the LAN, and no one was the wiser. If the studio continued to function, everything was working, all the routes were in place, and they did what they had to do, and within 10, 15 minutes of each thing I did, 4 engines, 4 studios replaced on Saturday afternoon in less than 45 minutes. Not one person realized that the system was taken offline. We were working on it and put it back.
Chris, that's the best commercial for Axia I've ever heard. That's fantastic.
I'm serious. I did do that. I mean, the guys back in support, when I told them what I did, they're like, "Are you nuts?" I was like, "No. I purposely did." You know the facility I'm talking about and how we operate. There was no downtime. So I said, look, I have no choice but to do it this way. But I designed it and the layout and everything so that I could do that. It's almost the equivalent of hot swapping a card. Right? That's what I basically did. And it worked. It worked really well, actually. I was surprised.
If you want more information about Axia, you know where it is on the website, axiaaudio.com. I got to tell you, there's now 4,000 Axia consoles out there on the air and in production rooms around the world. Cool stuff, and more and more to come. And as standards for IP audio continue to be formed and standardized, when Axia Livewire came out, there was no standard. We had to invent things. And they work really well, but now different manufacturers coming together. This X192 standard is something that in the next year, 18 months, we're going to be talking about here on This Week in Radio Tech. We're going to have some tutorials about it to help us understand what's different about it and how will your next generation of broadcast gear connect to each other and to existing gear using the X192 standard. So looking forward to a long career for IP audio, because it certainly is going to be with us for a while. That's for sure. Hey, we gotta get going here. Let's get to Jake Bechtold, our guest, who's already popped in a couple times here with some comments. As I mentioned before the break, Jake, I jotted your name down about a month ago. Thought, sharp young man. Let's talk to this guy. Jake, tell me what are some of the things how did you get into broadcast in the IT world? What sucked you into that?
Well, how I got started was I started doing college radio. And I actually became their webmaster. Was doing websites in high school and became their webmaster. And after doing that for a little bit, I've like, well, the student station, they don't have any really. Their IT is kind of lacking. Their computers, they need work. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll take that over anyway. So I'm doing the webmaster thing and working on their computers. And then we approached the point where we got a grant and we started building this new production room. And the engineer at the time, who is also my chief engineer at work, I work with him full time now. He's my chief engineer over there. He needs some help putting this new production room together. So I'm like, well, I can help him out with that. I know about computers. I should be able to make it work, right? I learned quite a bit, and I'm still learning every day. There's always something new I'm picking up about how studios are run, about how you want things to sound on air. How the air chain works, all that stuff. There's always something to be learned when you come from the IT side.
So what challenges? What's on your horizon now? What's really got your attention in the IT world with these radio stations? And then we'll talk about the engineering coming up. So what has your attention this week?
Well, I think the one thing kind of got my attention this week is you guys on the show last week talked about how they're maybe talking about taking FM radios out of the cars, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. But it got me to thinking, well, we really need to be working on how the stations are streamed. And so that's kind of always one thing I do oversee is, how, make sure the stream's up and running, but it's never a priority. And I'm guilty of it sometimes too, but I think in stations overall, they don't make their stream a priority. But I mean, if your stream's not, if your stream is just as important as what you're putting out over the airwaves, because it's a way for someone to listen. And if someone normally listens that way and can't, they're going to tune to something else.
Yeah, Yeah. So, all right. So, yeah. So, on your streams, do you produce several versions of the same audio stream, like an MP3 or an AAC, or you guys just doing one version?
We actually have two versions. We have one version that runs on the web player that we actually have a company does all our streaming for us as far as handling the web interface and whatnot. We have one version that runs, I think it's only like 48 kilobits per second AAC that runs on the web players that the desktops use. And then we have a 32 kilobit AAC version that goes to the mobile apps that SecureNet's company does it, that produces the apps for us. And then it's also the same feed that goes to TuneIn Radio also.
Ah, yeah, okay, yeah. Tune in. This is something that I think is pretty exciting. I got some information last week that TuneIn is probably a company to watch in terms of building a platform that lets radio stations produce their own experience on the TuneIn platform. Not that it's there right now, and I've just played with it a little bit on a couple of Android devices. But anyway, I got some information that TuneIn is really a company to watch. Now, I'm sure several companies like Stitcher and others, iHeartRadio perhaps, and other solutions say that they're the company to watch. So it'll be interesting to watch these companies and see what shakes out in the next few years. As we talked about last week, the one thing that I'm just so hung up on is there's got to be a low friction way for people to hear what they want, not have to realize, oh, I can't listen to the Cincinnati Reds on this application because the station that has the Reds isn't on this application. I have to go to some other application, which is on my iPhone, but I don't think I put it on my iPad, or it's not on my Google Nexus 7 or whatever. That's high friction. And that's what we have to avoid, and yet it seems like that's what we have. Jake, you comment about that thought?
I absolutely agreed. Like for our stations, each of our stations, except for one, there's one station that does some syndicated stuff. We have no way of streaming it. But our 5 to 6 stations do stream, and we have mobile apps for them. But and I guess it's good and bad. Each station has its own app, which I guess from a promotion standpoint is kind of cool. So then you get that station's icon on your phone. You're like, oh hey, I'm looking at such and such a station. That's the station I'm listening to. You get that in your head. The problem with that though is if you're trying to switch stations, or maybe you want something from say out of market, that's the exact problem you're going to have. If you don't have their app, you can't listen to it. And if you're in a position where I can't get this app right now, it's just kind of frustrating that you're not able to listen to what you want to listen to.
Yeah. And in the chat room, they're talking also about the video services that you have apps for. It's pointed out that I've got Netflix and Amazon Instant Video, because between the two, I'll probably find something that we're looking for. And if you don't have both of them, then you're missing out on what the other one doesn't have. Then if you want to watch a program that was on the ABC television network, well, ABC.com has their own app, right? And I don't know if their shows, I don't subscribe to Hulu, so I don't know if their shows are on Hulu. But, you see, it's a fragmented marketplace. And while everybody has their own financial interest in having you go to their app, I don't think that's consumer friendly. And I think that in the long run, that's not particularly helpful. We tried to correlate this last week with, your TV is not an app, or if it is an app, it's one app. And, you have a channel selector, you may have a guide, and you have your favorite channels, and that's how you use your TV. So why? And radio's been that way too. You have a radio; it's got a tuning knob or a dial or push buttons or whatever. That's changed a bit over the years, but you don't have to have different radios in your car. Okay, ham guys do, right? But you don't have to have different radios in your car to listen to different radio stations. It's one radio. So now this radio here that we're giving away tonight, this is a little bit fragmented. There's no AM on here. So if you want to hear your favorite AM station, well, maybe it appears on some FM's HD. See, a lot of markets are doing that. But if it doesn't, then you maybe can't hear your favorite AM station. So we won't beat that dead horse. Yeah, we will. We'll beat that dead horse every week until something happens. So Jake, you're just getting into broadcast engineering. That means, I guess, that you're now discovering the wonderful world of balanced audio, unbalanced audio. Maybe you're learning about RF and antennas and 50 ohms and coax and how high the voltage has to be before it really hurts. What are some of the things that you've kind of discovered in the last couple of years since you've been doing some broadcast engineering?
Well, I think the main misconception I had kind of going in is like, well, you can plug anything to anything. It shouldn't matter, right? Well, not necessarily. You got to have balanced audio on the air. You can't just, like for the student station, people want to just plug an iPod, and I can just run an iPod to the board, right? No, you can't. It's got to have the right input. It's got to be balanced, all that fun stuff. So it's more so learning that you can't just do. You can do what you want to accomplish. You can get done, but you have to do it the right way and make sure you do. Take the right precautions to make sure it's going to sound right on the air.
Yeah, yeah. What have you? Audio processing is a pretty popular topic on any show. Anytime we talk about audio processing, people tune in and listen and pay attention and ask questions. There's always opinions about it. Is audio processing something that you've been dealing with?
It's not. I haven't done a whole lot with the processing. I know when it sounds bad. I know when it needs to tweak. I have not actually done any of the tweaking itself on the audio processing per se.
Well, I'm sure you'll get into that eventually. And even for streaming, audio processing is important to keep the stream level appropriate. What about at the transmitter site? Have they let you in the transmitter site yet?
Oh, they have. That was actually baptism by fire for the first site I went to working for Triad. It was the chief engineer was on vacation for the week, and our AM up in Fargo went off the air. Well, no one else is available to look at it. Want to go look at it? All right, run out there. Turns out the building didn't have power, so there wasn't a whole lot I could do to begin with, and there was no generator at the site, so there wasn't much I could do. But yeah, it's been baptism by fire, learning what's at the transmitter sites and how kind of everything's organized.
I think that
fire and transmitter site, not a good phrase.
I was going to say, one of my first experiences at a transmitter site was putting out a fire.
Oh Lord!
Yes. Oh God! I may have mentioned this on a War Stories episode, but I'll just mention it. This was WKXO in Berea, Kentucky at 1500 or 1500, I think. And one day it rained all day, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 4:30, the transmitter went off the air. Well, I'm the manager, the chief cook and bottle washer, the morning guy, the afternoon guy, the salesman. I'm everything almost. Well, okay, I guess I'll go to the transmitter site. So I went out to the transmitter site, fought my way through the weeds, got to the building, opened it up, and there's smoke billowing out the building. And there's water dripping in from the roof, too. That was the source of the ignition. It dripped into the transmitter. And so the transmitter was a Gates BC 250GY. Chris and Tom know what that is. Jake is saying, what? This transmitter is as big as a walk-in refrigerator. And it puts out a whopping 250 watts.
And it has a whopping several kilovolts inside, probably too.
Oh my goodness, it does. So stupid me, I'm lucky to be alive, right? I go to the back of the thing just to see what's going on, and it was off. Yeah, okay. I'm thinking of two different stories. It was off. I opened the back up. Smoke comes billowing out. Oh, but I see the fire. There's a circuit board down near the bottom, and it's this is an old transmitter, so I don't know if it's even the modern. I don't think it's fiberglass. It's a phenolic board. Maybe it's one of those those brown circuit boards. What are those made of? Is that Bakelite or some kind of? Yeah. Anyway, so there's this brown thing. It's on fire. So I can't hardly breathe. Right? There's this noxious smoke going on. So I can't believe I did this. I ran outside. I went, ran inside, went, blew the fire out. We didn't have a fire extinguisher. I blew the fire out.
And it was called Kirk Harnack.
I blew the freaking fire out. And so I was so proud. The fire, I had to go back outside. So the fire was out, and I ended up letting the smoke clear, got back inside. It wasn't that hard to fix. I think I got the soldering iron, some wire out, and just fixed a couple places where the traces had gone bad. Took a rag or paper towels and cleaned up all the water. Got the roof to, I put a little plastic tarp over the transmitter, got the roof, the water to, roll off the side of the transmitter instead of inside it. Shut the door, turned the power back on, transmitter came on. How about that? So, And it was pretty much at that point that I decided I could be an engineer.
So what you're saying is your firefighting ability blows.
Yes. So Jake, I hope that teaching yourself engineering. If you don't get killed, you're likely to learn some things. Oh man.
Oh Lord.
Jake, my advice is don't be stupid, but you got to go to transmitter sites and fix stuff and learn stuff. And what was I doing wrong? I was alone with a transmitter that literally had 3,000 or 4,000 volts in it. And
yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah,
No, not a good time.
There are there are stations usually where there's an engineering union, but sometimes it's there doesn't have to be a union to have this rule, and that is you don't go to the transmitter side by yourself. Even in a small market, hey, take the sales manager, take somebody with you, take your wife or girlfriend or the afternoon disc jockey, take somebody with you to the transmitter site, for safety, and tell them how to turn the power off before they lift you off the high voltage.
It's true. It's true.
It's helpful.
Oh yeah.
So Jake, thinking about where you're going with this career, what are you most interested in learning about on the engineering side?
Well, the one thing I would like to learn a lot more about, admittedly I don't know enough about RF and transmitters. I know some. I've got a ham, got a ham license. Got that recently. I know some, but not nearly enough to. I don't think I know enough to go where I'd like to go with that. So that's something I think I need to learn a lot more about is transmitters and RF and I know kind of how they work, but the innards, the details about them.
Hey, Jake, you're what, a technician?
I'm a general, actually, and hopefully I'll actually become an extra next week, taking the test next Tuesday.
Well, I can tell you on the extra. The extra test is just about as rough, if not rougher, than the commercial first class test that Chris, I, and Kirk had to take many years ago. So, if you can pass the extra test, you're well on your way to doing your being able to service the transmitters, because you'll have the knowledge. You just need to get the experience.
Excellent. That's good to know.
I knew an engineering manager who would hire engineers, and he would look over their resumes and interview them. But he would always have a question that you couldn't answer unless you had actually paid attention and had a clue. And one of his most typical questions was, to what characteristic impedance would you want to connect a broadcast transmitter? And this is something that they probably don't teach in school. You can get an electronics degree and not know the answer to this. And of course, all of us in this room know that it's 50 ohms.
Well, wait a minute, Kirk. How long ago was this question?
Well, this was 10 years ago.
10 years ago, it would have been 50 ohms.
Yeah, I know. There used to be more standards than there are now, right?
Oh God! The Buckley station at Hartford was 72 ohms. WOR when I got there was 75 ohms.
And what about that 51.5 ohms?
Oh yes, there was 51.5, and actually I think there was 93 ohm for something or other.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, don't ask me why. Don't ask me what. I couldn't tell you.
Well, for anything made today that puts out a radio, AM or FM signal, the answer is 50 ohms.
Right. If it's an AM signal, though, you have to ask, is it a 50 ohms into a tuning circuit that matches to the tower? Or is the tower actually tuned for 50 ohms, 3 ohms, 10 ohms?
Well, the question was, to what characteristic impedance would you connect a broadcast transmitter? The transmitter itself is going to want to see 50 ohms. Heck, there's a lot of transmitters now that don't even have a tuning output on them.
There were some transmitters that 50 ohms is not their choice.
Navion in the chat room says lots of translators use 75 ohms. Really? TV translators or even radio translators?
I'm guessing that may be on the input, not on the output. The output's usually 50
sure, on the
ohms.
input. Yeah. But I said, to what characteristic would you connect the output of a broadcast transmitter? So anyway,
50 ohms.
Wow, fun. Well, Jake, listen, it's been a joy learning a little bit about you. And how old are you, Jake? If you don't mind my asking.
23.
23. All right. Well, you've got. Man, when I was 23, I think I had shocked myself a couple of times already. So.
Oh, just a couple.
I'm pretty sure I had. That's what's wrong with me. Oh man, yeah. Well, I tell you, oftentimes, the older manuals were better sources of information typically than the newer manuals are, because there used to be able to service every part in most pieces of broadcast gear. Now that's not the case. But get hold of manuals and just read how stuff works. If they explain the circuits, if they explain the hookup stuff, and if they have, a lot of manuals have an appendix that explains something, maybe even a white paper. One of my favorite, well, there's two favorites. If you get hold of an Orban audio processor manual, there's an appendix in a lot of them, maybe all of them, I don't know, about audio quality in the broadcast plant. And that was one of my first introductions in. I mean, it tells you things like, change the stylus regularly. Well, they've updated it since then, but that's the one that I read. But they talked about balance, unbalance, keeping impedances right, and just how to make sure that the audio that you're delivering to the audio processor is the audio that the people who produced the record intended to get to the audio processor. That it was in phase, and the frequency response was reasonably flat, the distortion was very low, things like that. And then there's another appendix to a manual, and this is in the back of the Nautel manual for Nautel transmitters. And other transmitters may have something equally good, but there's a great one at the back of Nautel about grounding to keep lightning away from the transmitter, to make it go to the ground and not go to the transmitter. And this is just a wonderful paper on how to do that. You read those two things right there, and you've got about half of what you need to know for taking care of studios and transmitter sites. It'd be a good time to recommend a couple things. Chris Tobin, what might you recommend that a 23-year-old engineer immerse himself in, learning-wise?
You can get yourself a copy of the NAB Engineering Handbook.
Oh my gosh, it's 4 inches thick. Huh. But you're right. You should do that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chris. Go ahead.
You get so if you go back in the archives, get some of the early ones. You get some good information out of the early ones. The most current ones work as well. If you can find at some transmitter sites in the marketplace you're in, if you can make friends, or if you're not already friends with engineers there, find them at the transmitter site. The old Harris or Gates RCA Continental Electronics transmitter manuals, and in them you'll find in the front sections theory of operation and why they work the way they do. That'll give you some insight. It's good to understand some of that as well. And then on the studio side of things, well, you already have that at your fingertips. But the transmitter side, get the manuals first, and you'll get an idea of what's going on.
Tom Ray, how about you? Where would you point Jake to learn something you might know?
Well, I would agree with Chris. If you can get to know some of the people at the other stations, that's always a good thing. But if you're close by to an SBE chapter, start going to SBE meetings. It's a great chance to network with people, and the mission of SBE is to educate the broadcast engineers. So you will have many opportunities to learn and to either talk to or hear from people that you normally wouldn't be able to contact or have contact with. It's a good thing to get involved with. It really is.
SBE meetings are great neutral zones. Okay, that's a
yeah.
So if you're in a market where you have competition, and there's always competition, which is healthy, SBE meetings are sort of like the unwritten neutral zone. People are willing to sit and meet and greet, and there's a professional courtesy, so you don't say things you shouldn't about what your station's doing, and you get a lot of information from people. And it's helpful. And Tom is absolutely right. That's a great way to meet and understand and get some information.
All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. I want to give this radio away. And Jake, would you give me a random number between 1 and 21?
Let's go with 17.
17. 17. Hang on a second. Somebody do the Jeopardy music here. Dum, 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 dum. Oh, that's probably copyrighted, Didn't thought about that.
Watch out for that.
What did it say? 15, 16s. Jordan Bits. That's the way you pronounce it. Jordan Bits. Let's see. He is at JMoneyBits. Ooh, let's check Jordan out. Make sure he's not some kind of a scammer or something. No, local media producer, personality, Instagrammer, blogger, student, video enthusiast, computer nerd, Mac user, and Christian from Bismarck, North Dakota. How about that? Hey,
Just
you got a
down the
home state
highway.
guy there.
Excellent.
All right. Well, Jordan, you have won. Jordan, I'll contact you. You contact me and get your shipping address, and I will ship this out. I'll try to get it out tomorrow. I'm going on vacation tomorrow afternoon, so I'll try to get this out to you tomorrow, and you'll have it next week. Congratulations to Jordan Bitts, and thank you for listening and for retweet. Here's a picture of Jordan talking on a microphone, so I guess he really does do what he says. Cool. All right. Hey, in the next couple of weeks, we've got exciting shows coming up. Hopefully, Chris Tarr will be back. We'll have more back and forth about the direction of radio. I'm sorry, I slipped my mind right now. Who our upcoming guests are? John Garziglia is a communications attorney. And we're going to have John on a future show. He has agreed to be on. We just hadn't figured out what date to get John on yet. Great guy, a lot of fun. For an attorney, this guy is really interesting. So John Garziglia. Yeah, okay. Yeah, John will be on with us. So, hey, we got to run. Our show's been brought to you by Axia Audio. Please check out IP Audio. Read the white papers about IP Audio on the Axia website. Even if you're interested in a different brand of IP Audio, you can certainly learn what you need to learn from the resources available there. There's also a book written by Skip Peasy and Steve Church, still available. I think it's about $40, all about IP Audio. Great information. So check it all out at axiaaudio.com. Thanks so much to Andrew Zarian for producing and switching our show. Appreciate it so much. The show will be posted in a couple of days, and we always put that info out on the web and on the Facebooks and the Twitters, so you know where to go download, subscribe, or watch or listen to the show. Jake Bechtold, thank you for being our guest. Sure appreciate you taking the time to be on.
Thank you. It's been a blast.
Yeah, glad to have you. And Tom Ray from Hudson Valley of New York, thank you for being here.
Hey, you bet, Kirk. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
And Chris Tobin from Manhattan. I appreciate you taking your time to be here very much.
No problem. Anytime. I'm having a good time with this. It's fun.
All right. Look forward to seeing you guys out at NAB in a few weeks as well. Thanks for watching us. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye, everybody.
That's all the bandwidth we can pilfer this week. Another twort has propagated, and all the transmitters and audio equipment live happily ever after, thanks to the handsome engineer and his kind, benevolent care. We'll be back next week.
Lord willing and the creek don't rise.
This Week in Radio Tech. Subscribe to iTunes and you'll never miss a show. Search for This Week in Radio Tech in the iTunes Store. Soliciting is strictly encouraged. If you like today's show, tell a friend. If you didn't like it, we were never here. Kirk Harnack's wardrobe provided by the Salvation Army and the Red Cross Disaster Relief Services. Hair and makeup provided by Penelope Garcia Hernandez Weinberg.
He's unique, wouldn't you say?
I just want to get it over with.
This ends this transmission. Tango, Whiskey, India, Romeo, Tango. Signing off. Okay.